So I'm going to do my best at talking to you about not my knowledge, but my experience about healing the soul. And I already am going to say this is a tricky title because the soul doesn't need any healing. What we need to heal is all the debris we put on in our subconscious mind that stops us our connection with the soul. So this is my experience, and I've come across two geographically opposite traditions. One is Ayurveda in India, and the other one is the tradition of the Zenu people in Colombia, where I have the honor to be one of the traditional doctors. And when you are named traditional doctor for the Zenu people, it doesn't mean you heal the body. It is implied you can access the soul. And I don't know how I have this title, to be honest. But again, I'm going to try to share with you my experience with these two traditions and my own tradition, which is Iberian folk magic, basically. So when we talk about the invisible dimension of healing, we are not talking about something mystical, but something essential when we want to achieve deeper forms of healing, not only for others, but for ourselves. I'm sure you all have great reverence for the traditions you are in contact with, whether this is Ayurveda, this is Chinese medicine, and all of them, I think they have a small area where they consider there are illnesses that cannot be explained, and that there are illnesses for which the best treatments are treatments we cannot explain with knowledge, treatments that we cannot explain with logic. And I myself, I do want to understand why they work, how they work, when they work, because they don't work always. But spirit is elusive, and it doesn't want to be measured. So modern medicine excels at diagnostics and symptom management, but it often bypasses the deeper layers of the existence. That is meaning, that is connection, and that is our ancestral memory. For many cultures, the spiritual illness is not a metaphor. It's a very precise imbalance that affects one's energy, our emotions, and our relationships. When someone loses their will to live, when the joy is gone, when there's persistent disease and you fix one thing and another comes back, and another comes back. Our ancestors, they listened to the soul, and they had specific tools to reconnect the body with the mind and with the soul. So let's start with the subconscious, which is where our body and psyche intersect. It processes the 95% of our daily actions, beliefs and responses without us being aware of it. So reconnecting with the soul is going to require, first of all, cleaning this layer. And later on, we can talk about what it is connecting with the sacred. Neuroscience shows that the brain becomes especially receptive to change in certain states, like theta and alpha waves, which can be accessed through music, breath, meditation, and ritual. These are not anymore French concepts. And luckily, we live in a time when we can explain by science, by logic, things that our ancestors felt and things that they knew that worked. Mirror neurons allow us to emphasize, to learn through imitation. And in healing, the presence of a grounded, compassionate practitioners activate those neurons in the client. Rhythmic chanting, rhyming, and song create synchrony in brainwaves, what is called brain entrainment. And rituals that use smell, touch, sound, and symbol engage multiple sensory pathways, which increase emotional salience and imprinting. All of this creates a fertile ground for new beliefs, for healing traumatic memories, and for releasing what no longer serves us. So I'm going to start with Ayurveda because it is a true science, and out of the other disciplines is the one that has deeper written records about these concepts. So in ancient India, they found different levels of spiritual illnesses and their causes. So the first one is going to be crimes against wisdom. So basically, when we are complete idiots. So this means when we go intentionally and constantly against our inner knowledge and the laws of nature. There is another type of illnesses that is caused due to misusing the senses. That is when we are constantly activated. And I'm sure if you are on social networks, you can imagine how this is impacting our mental illnesses today. There's also when the mental channels are blocked due to trauma, for example. Another cause for spiritual illnesses is going to be when the mind cannot rest. And I love to hear the work of Ayurveda today. So just by putting 1% of people of one population to calm their minds, it can help to lower the violence in the same environment. So imagine if we can go beyond calming the mind, and we can actually connect that 1% of people with what is sacred in life. There's also another aspect that considers that there is karmic diseases, and this can be to the question of like pediatric cancer, why some souls would like to experience that, and why they have such a deep knowledge of life, sometimes more than their parents. Maybe we see life as very limited, and we see ourselves as teachers of our sons and daughters, but what if they actually were karmas to teach us the value of life? There is another aspect which also talks about possessions and strange energies, and there is the suffering of the soul. So when life becomes too painful, we choose not to engage in it anymore. And it doesn't matter what you do if you cannot establish that connection. And the last cause for spiritual illness is when we become disconnected with our path, our true calling. That is also a cause for spiritual illness. So as we can see in Ayurveda, the mind and body are deeply interwoven through many subtle energies. Our practices like mantras don't just calm the mind, they literally reorganize our neural circuits. Repetition of Sanskrit sounds activates theta states and increases GABA levels, help regulate anxiety, depression, and even pain. Also, Panchakarma can help. Panchakarma is a process of profound detoxification of the body. This sometimes we experience that helps patients to liberate from traumatic experiences and emotions. So when it comes to Zenu medicine, for the Zenu people, a major aspect of healing is the ability to connect with your environment. Zenu medicine teaches that healing is relational. It happens in right relationship with the land, with your ancestors, and with the spirit. So when we perform Zenu medicine, we don't use rosemary, we don't use ashwagandha. So the Zenu doctor is going to communicate with the plant, and actually the plant spirit will tell you what a specific plant is suited for that patient. And that means maybe we need a type of rosemary that is not so hot and it grows in an area a bit more in the shadow, or the opposite. Zenu healers will also use sacred songs called cantos. And they are not just songs, they carry vibration. So these songs affect the limbic system, our emotional brain, and they speak directly to the subconscious in the language of metaphor and resonance. We also use ritual baths, tobacco smoke, dream interpretation. So all is to help to give a voice to the illness through a symbolic language. The healer acting as a cultural and a spiritual translator. And finally, this will remain tradition by heritage. And unfortunately, out of the three is the one we have less records, less knowledge, and even less practitioners. The folk magic in Spain and rural Europe is deeply practical, emotionally charged. When a grandmother prays for her child, they maybe use an egg over the body or light a candle at home to try to collect all the illnesses. So she's creating emotional safety. These gestures bypass the rational brain and access emotional memory. They sometimes combine Catholic icons with pre-Christian symbols, which deepens resonance in the collective unconscious. These rituals are powerful because they are consistent, symbolic, and most important, they are enacted with a loving and from a regulated nervous system. So when we see these three traditions, we see striking parallels and many differences as well. So when we see the Iberian tradition, it has completely fallen into the superstition. As I was saying in the beginning, for the same people, a doctor cannot be a doctor if they cannot treat soul. And Ayurveda is kind of in between, where you will find practitioners that practice in a way that is more medical, some practitioners that incorporate both, and also some practitioners that are fully dedicated to spiritual practices. I work with a clinic in India, probably one of the best treating psoriasis, and they have a fantastic rate at it. However, they are aware that a small percentage will not react to the treatments. And in these cases, they have specific Vedic astrologers, ritual healers, and through them they achieve another percentage in success rate. So each of them uses rhythmic sound, symbolic action, somatic presence of the healer to change subconscious pattern. In these traditions, the healer is not a fixer, but a guide. So it's someone that can hold the space and is able, through their own coherent state, to entrain the nervous system of the patient. So they can introduce the patient to the sacred through their own embodiment. Research into mirror neurons, polyvagal theory, and psychosomatic medicine is helping us validate what traditional medicine has known by intuition from always. I'm sorry, my slides are completely out of order, but I get carried away. So I could present you with many cases of when I have encountered the unexplainable. And out of them, this is one of the more normal ones, and one where more people was involved on it. So this is a case of a fellow student, Asane. She entered a coma on 16th August 2024. So on 17th August, a group of 29 Ayurvedic practitioners from all over the world, we started a mantra group led by Dr. Krishna. And on 20th August 2024, she was declared clinically dead. The doctors asked her to leave the room. However, her mother refused to leave her side and continued doing certain marathons that she had been advised to do. And she continued chanting the mantras. 48 minutes after having been declared clinically dead by 3 doctors, she came back to life. One may argue that many other people come back from near-death experiences without mantra chanting, and that's absolutely true. However, in this case, what is striking is when she explained the kind of visions she was having during her coma and during the time she was clinically dead. So basically experiencing teachers and colleagues and relatives asking her to come back. Again, my teacher will say, believe it or not, and after all, in this life, we are down to what we believe or what we don't. But when we are talking about the sacred, I found it elusive, very elusive, and again, very difficult to measure. So these practices are not merely superstition. We don't know why they work, but sometimes they do. And to me, it's fascinating that sometimes passing an egg to someone can actually work and do something. So to me, that deserves a little attention, at least. So for the modern healer, reclaiming these tools is both a scientific and a spiritual act. And again, if we want to achieve deep healing, we need to recover that ability to reconnect our clients and ourselves to the flow of life. And why is it important right now? I feel this is the reason we're here, but we are at such a fascinating time in history where humans, we have created an artificial form of consciousness. Something our ancestors did not prepare us for. How is this new form of consciousness going to affect our own collective consciousness? We don't know. But what we know is that this artificial form of consciousness, in a matter of years, is going to surpass our capacity in logical thinking. I can tell you, maybe 5 years. Artificial intelligence will be able to collect all the knowledge we have here in this room and synthesize it in 1 minute. That is the situation we face. So, what was the essence of traditional medicine? What is our essence as traditional healers? What is it? Is it that we know herbs? Is it that we know energy? Ritual is not superstition or mystical poetry. It is the key that leads to the deep healing the world is craving. Ancient healers were the keepers of the sacred fire. That is the sacredness of life. If we want to achieve true healing in others, in ourselves, we need to be able to reconnect with that life. So if this is my contact, I would love to collaborate with you in any form you can think of. And hopefully I have inspired you a little bit to explore your own traditions. We are here to remember our own traditions.